Ethan was just 6 years old when he was found unconscious, his small head submerged in a cold toilet bowl. His mother, Sarah, was frantic, neighbors were stunned, and detectives were left racing against time to uncover how a child so young ended up in such a terrifying state. What hidden horrors lurked behind the closed doors of the Thompson household, and who was truly responsible for Ethan's desperate fight for survival? The morning had begun like any other in the quiet neighborhood of Maple Street. Birds chirped softly outside, and the sun cast a gentle glow over the rows of neat houses. Inside one of these homes, the Thompson family's house, everything seemed calm at first glance. But beneath this peaceful surface, something was terribly wrong. That day would mark the beginning of a tragic and shocking mystery that would haunt the community for years. The 6-year-old boy, Ethan Thompson, was found by his mother in the bathroom in a state that no parent ever wants to witness. His small body was limp, and his head was submerged in the toilet bowl. The water was cold and still, but the sight was alarming enough to send her into a panic. Without hesitation, she called emergency services. Neighbors, unaware of the situation, continued their daily routines, while inside the house, time seemed to stop. When paramedics arrived, they moved quickly and with urgency. They pulled Ethan from the water and began life-saving efforts right there in the bathroom. The boy's breathing was shallow, and his tiny chest barely rose and fell. Every second felt crucial. They wrapped him in blankets and rushed him to the nearest hospital. The mood in the house was heavy with fear and uncertainty. No one knew if Ethan would survive, or what had led to such a frightening scene. At the hospital, doctors worked tirelessly. They ran tests, checking for signs of drowning, brain injury, or any underlying health issues that might explain what happened. But the question of how Ethan ended up with his head in the toilet remained unanswered. Was it a simple accident, as the mother hoped? Or was there something more sinister lurking beneath the surface? Meanwhile, the police arrived at the Thompson home. They had been called in by the emergency responders who found the situation suspicious. Accidents involving children could happen anywhere, but certain details did not add up. The officers began a careful search of the house. They looked for anything out of place, signs of a struggle, evidence of neglect, or hints of foul play. The bathroom itself was small and cramped, but the detectives noticed subtle clues: a broken photo frame on the floor, faint marks on the walls, and the disorganized state of Ethan's bedroom. As the investigation took shape, the detectives interviewed neighbors and people who knew the family. Most described the Thompsons as quiet and somewhat private. The mother was seen caring for her children, but some neighbors mentioned hearing arguments late at night. No one had witnessed anything that would explain the sudden crisis that morning, but a few spoke nervously about a strange figure seen near the house in recent weeks. Back at the hospital, Ethan remained unconscious for hours. The medical team was hopeful but cautious. The boy was young and fragile, and every moment was a battle between life and death. His condition was stable but critical, and the uncertainty weighed heavily on everyone involved. The quiet street on Maple Avenue was no longer peaceful. What had seemed like a tragic accident was beginning to look like a puzzle with missing pieces. Who was responsible for the injuries? How did a 6-year-old end up in such danger inside his own home? The questions multiplied as the sun set, casting long shadows over the house where a child's life hung in the balance. What started as an ordinary morning had transformed into a chilling mystery, one that would reveal secrets nobody expected. The search for answers had only just begun. The morning's shocking discovery soon gave way to a deeper, more troubling investigation. At first, Everyone wanted to believe Ethan's fall into the toilet was a tragic accident, something that could happen to any young child curious or clumsy enough to lose balance. But as detectives combed through the house, small details began to raise questions. The scene didn't match a simple mishap. The broken picture frame, the scattered toys, and the disarray in Ethan's bedroom all pointed to a struggle or sudden disturbance. The bruises on Ethan's arms and legs didn't seem consistent with a fall or a moment of play. Medical experts confirmed some of these marks were too severe to be accidental, sparking concerns that someone had deliberately hurt the boy. The house, which from the outside looked ordinary and welcoming, now felt cold and tense. Detectives carefully photographed every corner, searching for fingerprints or signs of forced entry, but found none. It became clear that whoever had caused Ethan's injuries was likely someone he knew, someone with access to the home. This realization sent ripples through the investigation, shifting the focus from a random accident to a potential case of child abuse. Neighbors were questioned to gather more information about the family's dynamics. Some described the mother as a woman under constant pressure, juggling work and childcare with little support. She often appeared tired and stressed, but no one expected her to be connected to the boy's injuries. Others mentioned hearing raised, voices and arguments coming from the house late at night, but no one had ever reported anything to the authorities. The absence of the father added another layer of mystery. He had been away for months, leaving the mother to care for Ethan and his two siblings alone. Despite the mother's cooperation with the police, her nervous demeanor and inconsistent explanations raised suspicions. Detectives started to wonder if she was hiding something or simply overwhelmed by her situation. The family's financial struggles were also uncovered, adding stress that may have contributed to the tension inside the home. Social workers were brought in to assess the children's living conditions and emotional well-being, hoping to protect them from further harm. Forensic specialists analyzed the bruises and injuries in detail. Some wounds were old, suggesting a history of abuse, while others were fresh and severe, matching the timeline of the toilet incident. This discovery pointed to a pattern of neglect or mistreatment rather than a single accident. The more the investigators learned, the clearer it became that Ethan's suffering was not an isolated event, but part of a troubling family situation. Meanwhile, reports of a strange man seen near the house began to circulate. Several neighbors had noticed a figure lurking around the block at odd hours, someone unfamiliar and unsettling. Surveillance footage from a nearby store showed a man walking in the area on the morning Ethan was found. His identity was unknown at the time, but his presence added a new twist to the case. Was this stranger involved? Was he a threat to the family, or just a coincidental passerby caught up in the investigation? The police pursued this lead carefully, questioning anyone who might know the man. The search for answers grew more complex, with each piece of information leading to new questions. The community watched closely as the story unfolded, their quiet neighborhood now shadowed by fear and uncertainty. The hope was to protect Ethan and his siblings from further harm, and to uncover the full truth behind the injuries that nearly cost a young boy his life. The early assumption of an unfortunate accident had been replaced by a growing belief in something darker. Behind the closed doors of a seemingly normal home, hidden struggles and painful secrets were slowly coming to light. The investigation was far from over, and the detectives knew they had only just begun to scratch the surface of what really happened to Ethan Thompson. As the investigation deepened, the detectives began uncovering layers of the family's troubled past that few neighbors had seen. The Thompsons' home, once thought to be just another quiet family residence, now revealed a history marked by stress, isolation, and hidden pain. The mother, Sarah Thompson, appeared worn down by the pressures of raising 3 children alone. Her husband had been absent for many months, working in another state, and communication between them was sparse. The loneliness and financial strain weighed heavily on her, and she often seemed overwhelmed to those who knew her. Neighbors recalled occasional loud arguments coming from the house late at night. Sometimes, these voices were followed by a heavy silence, as if someone had been scared into quiet. No one had called the police before, perhaps unsure whether to intervene or worried about making things worse. The community, though close-knit, had a tendency to look the other way when problems didn't directly involve them. Now, however, those whispers became important clues. As the detectives interviewed friends and family members, a picture emerged of a household struggling to keep its balance. Sarah was described as a loving but anxious mother, prone to moments of frustration and sadness. The children, especially Ethan, had been quiet and withdrawn lately, a change noticed by their teachers and caregivers. The school counselor, in particular, reported that Ethan had become increasingly fearful and hesitant to speak about his home life. One chilling discovery came from the school counselor, who remembered a note Ethan had written in class several weeks before the incident. The message was short but haunting. It spoke of feeling scared and wanting to hide. The boy's words hinted at a secret too heavy for someone so young to carry alone. This note was passed on to the police, shifting the investigation into a more urgent phase. It became clear that Ethan's injuries were not just physical. They reflected a deeper emotional trauma. Meanwhile, a new thread complicated the case. A stranger seen near the Thompson home. Several neighbors had spotted an unfamiliar man walking the street at odd times. Surveillance cameras from a nearby convenience store showed the same man lurking in the area on the morning Ethan was found in the bathroom. This figure was described as nervous and watchful, as if trying not to be noticed. Detectives wondered if he had any connection to the family, or if he was simply a passerby caught up in unfortunate timing. The police identified the man as a distant relative of the Thompsons, recently released from prison. His past included charges for minor offences, but nothing violent or linked to the family before. When questioned, his answers were vague and sometimes contradictory, raising suspicions. Was he involved in harming Ethan, or was he an innocent party dragged into the investigation by circumstance? The detectives had to carefully weigh every piece of evidence. Social workers and child protection agencies also became involved, evaluating the welfare of Ethan and his siblings. Their assessments found signs of neglect and emotional distress in the home, reinforcing fears that the children were living in a harmful environment. The community rallied quietly, offering support where they could, but the stigma around the family made open discussion difficult. The investigation painted a troubling picture of a family struggling with hidden dangers and silent cries for help. Beneath the surface of everyday life lay secrets of fear, pain, and unanswered questions. Each new detail brought the detectives closer to understanding what had happened, but the truth remained elusive, tangled in layers of human frailty and desperation. As the days passed, the search for clarity became more urgent. The detectives knew that uncovering the full story meant confronting uncomfortable truths about those closest to Ethan, and realizing that sometimes the greatest threats come from within the walls meant to protect us. The investigation took a dramatic turn when the school counselor handed over Ethan's note, a brief but powerful message filled with fear and confusion. It was clear the boy had been trying to reach out in the only way he knew how. The note spoke of feeling scared and hiding secrets too heavy for a child so young. This revelation gave the detectives a new lens through which to view the case. It was no longer just about physical injuries, but about a child trapped in a silent struggle. This shifted the focus sharply toward uncovering what or who had caused such deep fear in Ethan's heart. At the same time, the presence of the mysterious stranger in the neighborhood became a focal point. This man, unknown to most residents, had appeared repeatedly at odd hours near the Thompson home. Surveillance footage showed him lingering near the street early on the morning Ethan was found in the bathroom, sparking urgent questions about his intentions. The detectives worked to identify the man, uncovering that he was a distant relative recently released from prison. His criminal record was mostly minor offences, but his timing and nervous behaviour made him a person of interest. Interviewing, the man revealed conflicting stories. He claimed to have wanted to reconnect with the family, but admitted to feeling unwelcome and anxious around them. His hesitation and inconsistencies raised suspicions, but didn't prove direct involvement in the boy's injuries. The detectives faced a difficult challenge, determining whether he was a threat or a red herring in a complex case. Meanwhile, the mother's stress and erratic behaviour came under closer scrutiny, deepening doubts about who might have caused harm to Ethan. The school counselor's note, combined with the pattern of bruises and injuries, pointed strongly toward someone familiar to Ethan, someone within the household or close circle. Detectives learned from social workers that the family environment was strained, with signs of emotional neglect and instability. Sarah Thompson, overwhelmed by her responsibilities and personal struggles, was beginning to crack under pressure. But the truth was still buried beneath layers of denial and fear. Forensic analysis played a critical role during this phase. Experts examined the injuries carefully, distinguishing between those that were old and likely caused by ongoing neglect or abuse, and fresh wounds linked to the bathroom incident. The new findings confirmed that Ethan's suffering was part of a longer, painful pattern. This evidence brought a sense of urgency. Something had to be done to protect the children from further harm. Community members were torn between sympathy for the struggling mother and horror at what had happened to Ethan. Some expressed frustration that help had not come sooner, while others admitted they had suspected something was wrong but didn't know how to intervene. The case sparked conversations about the importance of noticing the signs of abuse and offering support before tragedies occur. As the detectives pieced together the timeline of events, the true complexity of the case became clear. It wasn't a simple story of a stranger's crime or a single accident. Instead, it revealed a family caught in a web of fear, desperation, and unanswered cries for help. Each new detail brought more questions about how such a young child could endure so much pain without the world noticing. The investigation's turning point came when the mother finally opened up about her struggles with mental health and the overwhelming stress of caring for her children alone. She admitted to moments of despair that led to unintentional harm, revealing a tragic truth behind the frightening scene in the bathroom. Her confession marked the beginning of a path toward healing, but also underscored how fragile the line between love and danger can become when support is absent. The story of Ethan Thompson was no longer just about what happened that morning. It was about the deeper wounds hidden within a family fighting to survive. The detectives knew their work was far from over, but this breakthrough offered a glimmer of hope that justice and healing could begin. The final pieces of the investigation came together slowly, but with a weight that could not be ignored. Forensic experts had carefully analysed Ethan's injuries, identifying which were old and which had been inflicted recently. This timeline painted a clear and painful picture. The boy's suffering was not a one-time event, but part of a disturbing pattern. The fresh injuries matched the moment he was found in the bathroom, unconscious and with his head in the toilet, while the older bruises suggested prolonged neglect or abuse over time. The evidence was undeniable. In the days that followed, the mother, Sarah Thompson, reached a breaking point. The pressure, guilt, and fear that had built up inside her became too much to bear. With the detective's careful questioning and the support of social workers, she confessed to the tragic truth. During a moment of intense stress and emotional collapse, she had unintentionally harmed her son. She explained how her mental health struggles, combined with exhaustion and isolation, had led to actions she never imagined she was capable of. The frightening scene in the bathroom was not the result of cruelty or malice, but of a desperate moment gone terribly wrong. Though difficult to accept, this confession brought clarity and a sense of direction to the case. The focus shifted toward healing and protection rather than punishment. Sarah agreed to enter a mental health treatment program and worked closely with social services to create a safer environment for her children. Authorities put measures in place to ensure Ethan and his siblings would be protected from further harm, including regular check-ins and support from child welfare organizations. Meanwhile, the mysterious stranger, the distant relative with a criminal past, was cleared of any involvement in harming Ethan. His nervous behavior and presence near the neighborhood were troubling, but ultimately unrelated to the boy's injuries. While barred from contacting the family to ensure their safety, he was no longer considered a threat. This conclusion helped put to rest one of the lingering questions that had complicated the investigation. The community around the Thompson family responded with mixed emotions: sadness, relief, and a renewed awareness of the hidden struggles that can exist behind closed doors. Many neighbors expressed regret for not reaching out sooner, realizing how easy it is to miss signs of distress when families try to keep their problems private. The tragedy served as a wake-up call, inspiring local organizations to strengthen efforts to identify and support vulnerable children and families. Ethan's road to recovery was long and challenging. Physically, he healed from his injuries, but the emotional scars would take more time to mend. He received counseling and care designed to help him process his experiences and rebuild a sense of safety and trust. His siblings also received support as the entire family worked toward a new beginning. The story of Ethan Thompson was heartbreaking, but also a testament to resilience and the importance of intervention. It revealed the complex realities behind child abuse and neglect, situations where love and desperation can collide with devastating consequences. It showed how critical it is for communities, authorities, and families themselves to pay attention, to ask questions, and to act before tragedy strikes. In the end, the case reminded everyone that sometimes the greatest dangers lie not in strangers, but within the fragile walls of a home. Yet it also proved that even in the darkest moments, hope and healing remain possible when the truth is faced and help is given. The nightmare of that autumn morning became a catalyst for change, shining a light on the need for compassion, understanding, and vigilance to protect the most vulnerable among us.